Arctic Wolf, we just produced some reports on the marketplace, and I think that's something that the customers we definitely want to hear about, and kind of get your perspective and the company's perspective on what you're seeing out there.
Yeah, so the most recent report that we released was our threat intel report. Interesting from the perspective of we've noticed that the amount of time before ransomware gets deployed is cut down significantly to around 5 days,
Okay.
which was historically in double digits before. So that's interesting, but I think most people aren't going to be surprised that the root access points are always the same. It's BEC, it's phishing, spear phishing.
Sure.
So whether it's ransomware or just identity theft, it's kind of BEC still the.
And what are they after, John? Like, of course, is it the data?
It's the data. Yeah, it's interesting too because you start to realize that they're much like a business, right? They're trying to take the easiest path. So
Right.
yeah, I'm sure you talk to customers and prospects, and they're like, "Hey, we're worried about 0 days, or we're worried about AI." It's like, you still don't have your front door locked, right? Like you're still not doing training for your employees. You're not paying attention to, patching and really getting a handle on that. So it's good to be paranoid, but you got to do the basics, man, too.
Well, and I think that's a great point because a lot of customers aren't covering the basics. Especially we see every day when we talk to clients, we get into that conversation of, security operations, they got all these great tools and nobody's watching, and time is your friend in that essence.
Right.
And then very quickly when an incident starts, time becomes your enemy.
Right.
And I think that's where, you obviously play in that space being a managed security provider. So I guess, what do you guys see as far as benefits when customers, look at a service like yours or even enter an agreement with service?
Yeah. So I think, from our perspective, it's being able to meet customers, where they're at.
Fair.
So,
Yeah.
Traditionally, we used to have to wait for them to get to a certain maturity point before we could kind of bring them into the MDR house. We've made some acquisitions recently. We have an endpoint agent now, so we do kind of meet them a little bit earlier in that security lifecycle. But then also being able to help them with, you mentioned kind of the solutions that we have, being able to kind of meet them and fill in those gaps wherever it is, where it's, whether it's incident response, whether it's security awareness training, whether it's vulnerability management, or MDR in general, right? Kind of wrapping all that stuff together is really beneficial. You kind of hit the nail on the head there too with, the response times and how much time you have. You have a lot of time to prep before an incident happens, but once it happens, you're kind of on the clock.
Yeah.
And running against the gun, and I think being able to be prepared, not just from an instant response perspective and have those plans in place, but also making sure that they're running through them and practicing them, so it's not the first time that they're doing the learning through errors, right?
Yeah, that cyber readiness is huge for our customers, but we have a lot of partners that are willing into this space. And one of the things that I believe that our customers really love about Arctic Wolf is really thinking about that full life cycle. You have, you're investing into AI really well. You are also still investing in your people, not really taking away from that massive security operations center that you have.
Right.
And then really, really powering your incident readiness and response and offering those advisory services plus, your IR 360 program. And then you're topping it off with a warranty, which is so neat. And so do you also see those same trends that we're seeing as well, like customers leaning into the full package there?
Yeah, we do. I think consolidation's been a big thing for the industry over like the last year or so. So we definitely see, where previously customers wanted to kind of diversify and had a bunch of different tools, they're trying to get their arms around it, bring it in, kind of have a solution that they have multiple services through. I think from our perspective too, it's interesting that, we kind of came into this thinking there was a lot of loyalty like in the endpoint space or in some other spaces, and it doesn't really seem to be that way anymore. So, falling into that consolidation side. I also think we've been pretty big over the years on, saying that it's important to have a human in the loop at all times. That's not going to change with AI. We still need people to have domain knowledge and understand the context of what's happening. So
Yeah.
I don't ever foresee us getting away from that. But it's also important, I think, too, when you have that human element, you start getting the things that just an incident response, we're putting our money where our mouth is. So being able to have the warranty, being able to help people get better deals on their cyber insurance is all important. And, with all the different solutions, we can help get them just about all the right thing.
CISOs love that, to save money as well as get a
Right.
warranty and cyber insurance and readiness.
Well, and I think one of the challenges, the amount of data is just going up exponentially, and then we're getting more and more data. And I think it's a challenge when customers, I think, hesitate a little bit in terms of do I want to outsource this or not. They're really looking for something that's more fixed in terms of a price, even though they really have very little control over how much data they're producing. And so I guess, can you talk a little bit about, the platform in terms of how you guys try to handle that situation better for customers?
Yeah, sure. So we've always been, two things are kind of like our 10 poles. So we've always been agnostic from like a to this perspective. So bring whatever you want, right? And we'll take to and true, we'll kind of fill in the gaps if there's areas that need to be covered that you don't have a solution today. And we've never charged for the volume of data that needs to take, right? So
Huge.
we don't want to make it a physics experiment to try to figure out how many logs you're going to send us and what the volume is of those. So customers seem to appreciate that. I also think, a lot of times it comes down to you're not really sure where that needle is going to come from when you do an investigation. So being able to keep as much data on hand as possible is super beneficial. So, but yeah, from an industry perspective, I mean, the data consumption's not going down,
Right.
It's by getting bigger, right? You start to add all these different tools in, and now you have no idea how much data you're going to
Yeah. Or where the data is. I think, you bring in new solutions and all of a sudden you got data in a SaaS that you never realized was
Right.
going to be a part of the equation when you signed up. So,
Yeah, until you get that letter that says like, hey, we've had a breach, and
Right.
by the way, some of your stuff is compromised.
I got like 10 letters in 2025. Let's not have 2026
Sorry.
to be like 15.
Too soon for that.
for
Too soon.
20 years now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's interesting because I think that's one of the, the big concerns with AI, and we talked about this a little bit before, is customers are really worried about where their data is going and what people are doing with it. And am I sending it out to these third parties that are training on it or whatever they're doing? But they still don't have really good policies around data classification. They don't know where it lives. They don't know if they have something out there in some third party SaaS or somebody fires something up and they send it out there and it's just been sitting out in the world somewhere. So those are all kind of scary conversations to have to start having when,
Sure.
with AI now you almost don't have an edge, right? When everybody's an insider threat at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Arctic Wolf's been a leader in the, MSSP space for a very long time. And I think one of the things that you guys are doing well also is really being able to advise, from like a compliance standpoint of where they are and like benchmarking and trying to really lean in to explain to customers why their security operations center is important and why certain logs are important. And I think that you guys do a really good job of communicating that like shareholder value and that ROI, because when you think about a security operations center, it's the heartbeat of an organization, right? And to trust that to a third party becomes
Absolutely.
difficult.
Sure.
And so I must commend you guys on that immensely.
Thanks. Yeah, we try to, there's kind of a few things that we've always tried to do. Like we've always tried to keep that human element so we can have context of what's happening. But one of the things that we noticed too early on was there was a lot of downtime, right? So most services are very reactive. So being able to do something during that downtime where we can help improve posture, whether you might hear this acronym SPIDERS, right? But it's basically our posture reviews that we do, right? So when there is downtime, we can do these assessments to, help raise up the quality of the security program. You start to couple that with, learnings from events and from incidents, and it goes a long way towards keeping your customers safer.
Absolutely.
Time. And you start to roll that into, you kind of hit the nail on the head. The SOC is, kind of the heartbeat of an organization, but it's also very hard to quantify what you're actually doing, right? So, hey, we've given you all this money.
Yeah.
We budgeted all this money. We didn't have any incidents. So what are you guys doing?
Right. Where's the
Right.
value?
Right. So how do you quantify that? So that's another thing we can help customers out with too, is being able to kind of benchmark them, baseline them, score them, and then show that improvement over time. So they can go to the board, or they can go to executives, or they can go to their insurance companies, or like actually, not say, trust me, like here's the actual evidence that will go through here, arrests.
But and I think you can bring them lower insurance premiums. I mean, just the
Absolutely.
fact that they're investing in the service.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where, again, kind of our warranty rolls in, is that, it's all about getting risk. Our tagline is end cyber risk, right? Which is kind of a very lofty goal.
We all have to have North Stars. That's
right?
great. It's great.
And, for us, it's about, okay, let's get your security program as far as we can, whether that's 85% of the way there or 95% of the way there. Then how do we get that residual risk off our books? And that's the warranty and the insurance policies.
Right. And I guess as far as, kind of taking the conversation a bit back to the AI front, I mean, as much as you can share, what's the platform doing, I guess, with AI to really help the customers, in terms of just better protection overall?
Yeah, so we like to make the joke that we've been doing AI since it was called machine learning. So we've been doing it for a while. I think the interesting thing from a customer's perspective is, and a lot of it is behind the scenes, right? A lot of it
Sure.
is things they would not necessarily see unless they were building this stuff on their own, but it's all about efficiency. So when you see a repetitive task that an analyst is doing hundreds of times, thousands of times a week, maybe that only takes 30 seconds, but if you can shave that 30 seconds off and get it down to 5 or 6 seconds, now you're talking about freeing up that time across the entire organization, across, thousands of analysts. So it really adds up from a time perspective. So being able to do things like detection and triage very quickly, figuring out, impossible travel, things like that, things that sound very like low-hanging fruit, but they're very repetitive tasks that take a lot of time. So customers will see increased efficiency from the SOC and the amount of time that it takes to alert them that something's happening. On our side, selfishly, we're really looking for it from the triage and the detection perspective. So there's a concept now of AI agents and swarms, which I think swarm is kind of a terrible name for it. It sounds very, very malicious.
Right.
But yeah, being able to spin up a ton of agents, almost like you would, with compute in the cloud, as you need more, spin up those agents, let them go do their detections, let them go do their investigations, and come back and get that context in front of an analyst so they can make a better decision. So it's all about speed and efficiency. And I think as AI gets better, as the models get better, we'll start to see that branch out into things like response and, maybe even doing some of the spires automatically. So they're just done on a regular basis rather than, having to choose to do them. The agents will just go do them on their own. So it's a lot of interesting things, scratches that part of my brain, the nerd part of my brain, but it's really exciting. It's a unique time in the world right now that we're watching kind of this transformation.
Yeah.
Truly. Well, we're seeing a lot of customers really reevaluate, their managed security service provider in this MDR space that we are in. And I think we're going to see some Kodak moments with a lot of companies who are not making the appropriate investments into AI or their tooling and even their people. So we're seeing a lot of customers really lean into, Arctic Wolf because of that, because you guys are staying at the forefront. You're creating really good strategic acquisitions and just keep on, staying market leader in many ways. And it's really commendable in that front.
Well, thank you. It's super exciting for us. We've kind of always had that North Star, like you said, of what we wanted to do. And all the acquisitions we've made over the years, all the changes we've made to the programs have all kind of been around that idea of how do we deliver that security outcome to a customer. So it's nice to hear the positive feedback. It's nice to see the customers are excited about it. Again, we put our money where our mouth is when it comes to things like the warranty. So we believe in it, So it's an interesting time for sure.
And you guys are stuck with the dedicated, concierge model where, I think just the customers, it becomes that glowing relationship that they're always looking for. It's not just an outsourced function, it's a true partnership. It's named people that learning each other as you go back and forth. So that it's commended as well, the fact that you guys are stuck to that model.
Yeah, I think it's important, right? I think being able to have, kind of that lifeline that that oh crap button that you can hit, that you can call somebody and just ask questions like, the AI is good, tech is going to get better, but still having somebody that you can bounce ideas off of or ask questions if you're not quite sure, that's still willable.
And I guess, from that point, from your perspective, where do you see the customers, I guess, in terms of that value, where they start generally with the portfolio? Because, you've got this massive portfolio there. They can take a sawtooth approach to it. They don't have to take everything at once.
Right.
Or, I guess from the standard kind of MSP side of things, where do you see them really moving towards? Is it more on the IR side? Is it more on the managed risk side? I guess where do you see?
That's a good question.
Stuff?
So a year or so ago, I would have told you that it was predominantly MDR.
Yeah.
Into a lesser amount, maybe security awareness training, or some customers come to us because they have an incident and they call the IR team. That's how they get introduced to us. Now I'd say it's kind of split between MDR and So we've seen a lot of endpoint traction, and that's kind of been a way that we can, get in with a managed solution that kind of helps solve some of the problems that some of the organizations have. Maybe they don't have budget just yet, maybe they they're still in the process of kind of building out their security program. So they need to start, kind of earlier in that phase. So yeah, endpoint and MDR are pretty much the two places that we see a lot of traction kind of right off the bat. And then as they get more mature, they'll start to add vulnerability management in. They start to add security awareness training. Yeah. Hopefully they never have to use the IR team once they become a customer of ours. Right. But
it's
stuff happens.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Wait. What?
I was just going to say that if anybody was interested in Arctic Wolf or wanted to explore further, they can obviously reach out to you guys or reach out to us at Arctic Wolf. We'd be more than happy to have a conversation with them. But
absolutely, yeah. Well, and thank you for the time. I mean, not easy. In this event, with everything that's going on, so it's not easy to fill out the time. So we definitely appreciate it.
I'm super happy to be here. I had a blast. This has been a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Thank you.